speeches tonight to come up in front of you all. So I'm going to say their names and then they're going to go ahead and come up and line up in front of you all. Junior Luke Beasley. Sophomores Dakota Bell. Everett Campbell. And just line up. Isaac Falble. Lizzie Grounds. Savannah Henry. Go ahead and keep scooching around. Stephanie Hill. Autumn McKittrick. Kaylee Morris. Hector Ochoa. Yira O. And Arnarvi Burma. And at this time, City Attorney Trevor Dennis is going to come up and provide the oath of office.
Thank you, Lori. If everyone would raise the right hand and then repeat after me, we'll do the swearing in of the oath of office. So if we're all ready, this is the oath of office required by the state of Oklahoma. So it'd be I, state your name, do solemnly swear that I will support, obey, and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the state of Oklahoma. And that I will not knowingly receive directly or indirectly any money or other valuable thing for the performance or non-performance of any act or duty pertaining to my office, other than the compensation allowed by law. I further swear that I will faithfully discharge the duties as a member of the Broken Arrow Youth City Council for the city of Broken Arrow to the best of my ability. Congratulations.
All right, I don't know if Councilor Parks or Councilor Green would like to say a few words. And thank you all. I'm looking really forward to working with you all this year.
I do want to shake hands with all of you as Councilor Green and certainly welcome you. We're excited about it. As I always say, I'm just trying to teach somebody to run against me. We do want you to know about democracy more. We also want you to emulate it. We want you to actually be involved in the democracy of the city that you live in, so that you grow up in, and in your schools. So that's our goal, is to make sure that we're able to teach you. The staff of the city of Broken Arrow will be there to help show you and guide you and direct you and to become great citizens. So that's our goal. We plan on having a great time. In this case, the next 3 years, Luke, the next 2 years, in that, but we will, once a month, we will have a topic picked out for you to study on, and there won't even be a test. The test is later on in life.
If you all want to scooch together kind of close, and if the parents want to come up and take a quick picture, you're welcome to, and then we'll be dismissed. Yeah.
Obviously, you guys are embarking upon a journey that's going to change the direction of your life from here forward. Something you can always use and take with you. Something your family can be proud of, and you can be proud of, and make a difference.
All right, thank you. Is it working? Live stream.
that our live stream is not working. It's not on the page. So I was going to share it, but it's not through. So Maybe. Is it live on YouTube? No.
I just looked on YouTube. I couldn't get it, but it's not.
DAR group's going to go. You'll be all right. You'll be all right. They'll think it's interesting.
All right. We'll go on to the consent agenda. We have item K is going to be pulled for discussion. And is there any other items to be removed?
I'll move to approve the consent agenda minus item K.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Second.
All right. Item K, approval of and authorization to execute a professional service agreement with Flock Safety to provide the Broken Arrow Police Department with 5 Flock Safety license plate reader cameras for a 60-day pilot period. This item was asked to be pulled, I know, by Christy and myself. I'm not sure if anyone else asked.
I didn't ask, but I wanted
Yeah,
to know. I'll
so
make sure.
we just wanted to make sure that it was on record and in public. So,
Okay.
Thank you, Chief.
Well, Mayor Wimpy, Council, Mr. Spurgeon, City Manager, thank you for letting me speak this evening. The item before you is basically a 60-day trial of the Flock Safety camera license plate readers. After the 60 days, we will have a lease agreement with them for $18,000 some odd dollars, so much per camera per year. That's a redoing cost. Before I get into any specific questions, I thought it might be helpful for me to go ahead and cover what exactly a license plate reader is and what it's not. So the basic of it, and I don't know if we're able to show the picture we sent over earlier. So this is a generic license plate reader report. There's numerous on the market. This one actually is not Flock Safety, but it's just one of many out there on the market. As you can see, as it goes to the intersection, the cameras are angled to take a picture of the tag itself and a profile of the car. The reason there's a picture of the car is to make sure if it comes back to a Ford and that's a Chevy, that's a sign or a clue we would call in our business that maybe that tag does not belong to that car. The software itself takes the letters and numbers on that plate and translate it from a picture into actual text, which is then sent off to a database. So it goes to the intersection, takes a snapshot of the tag and the car itself. This particular vendor, Flock Safety, has a cloud-based server that's CGIS compliant, and the tags that go through the system are on file for 30 days. Then they're purged. Only the tags are entered if they're involved in a crime, they're wanted for some reason, or they're subject of interest by another law enforcement agency or ourselves. So Amber Alerts, Silver Alerts, missing endangered persons, stolen vehicles, all the other kind of good stuff. One of the questions was, do you have to have probable cause to run a tag or take a picture of the car? And the answer is no. I could put an officer at every single intersection with a camera, a pen, a piece of paper, and a computer, and they could take a picture and run every tag all day long. That's perfectly legal. We're just using a system to do it automatically so we can save that manpower and put that staffing out in the field to answer calls for service. It's the same principle. We're just using a computer to do what we could have a person do all day long. The subject of what happens to the information once it pops up is the procedure is the same. So if I drive through the intersection, I run a tag on the computer or call in dispatch and it says it's stolen. I have to go through a verification procedure with dispatch. They check the computer twice. They call the originating agency. They verify that tag is still entered as stolen or wanted for some reason. It comes back to me, yes, it's still wanted or stolen. And then I take whatever type of law enforcement action is necessary at that particular time. The same thing happens with a license plate reader. So if it pops up in the system as wanted for something, a person still has to verify the same process. It's wanted for something, it goes to dispatch, they verify it's still wanted for something or it's stolen, and a person still verifies all that before any law enforcement action is taken. The only tags that pop up in this system or these license plate reader systems are ones that have been entered because they're a subject of a crime, they're wanted for some reason, or someone's looking for that person, like an Amber Alert or something like that. That's the only time you will get a hit on a tag as it goes through. If your car has not been reported as in a crime, if your car has not been reported as stolen, If you're not subject of a criminal investigation for some reason, and there's enough to want to stop you for some reason, your tag is not going to pop up and tell or alert law enforcement that it needs to be looked at for some reason. These cameras are not used for traffic enforcement. These are criminal investigations in nature. They're not used for speed enforcement. They're not used for insurance purposes. It's only if the car has that, and it's really based on the car. It's based on the car. The car's wanted for some particular reason. So it's not used for traffic enforcement. There is an audit process. So anytime an officer puts a tag in the system for some reason, there's a trail, there has to be a justification. Anytime an officer runs a tag and pops back out, there is an audit system to see why that officer is taking action against that particular vehicle. If it's run for stolen through NCIC, NCIC has an audit trail. We have to justify every time we run a tag through the audit trail, and we have to justify that through audits. What it was run for, who ran that tag, what they use that information for. Is it tied to a case, or was it information purged and shredded because it's no longer needed? This is the same basic type system we have that came before the council earlier. The Leonardo LSAG cameras, same principle, same method, just different database, and it's law enforcement specific only. Happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Justin, I'd love to hear from your perspective as the law enforcement, what your thoughts are on this.
Sure. As you may know, I work for Tulsa County Sheriff's Office, and we also use these flock cameras. And there were some questions and controversies surrounding them when we got them as well. Some of the questions were raised is, is this going to be a facial recognition software? Can the public access this information and those kind of things? I know you've kind of touched on that already. And I use the term CJIS safe material. Maybe if you can just tell everybody kind of what that is.
So the
and
Criminal
who has
Justice
access to
Information
that.
System is a system in which it has to go through an audit process that's verified. It's law enforcement only. So if we have a database or we use a vendor for specific items for law enforcement, it has to be CJIS compliant. So Flock Safety and the other vendors, if they're going to be marketing to law enforcement, have to advertise themselves as CJIS compliant. So I did fail to mention this is not facial recognition. As you can see on this software, these cameras are angled towards the car itself. That is what you would see, and it's not you really can't see who's driving the car. This is a software company that also happens to have cameras attached to it. It's not facial recognition. That would be a whole other company, a whole other contract, and that would be something that the council would have to look at and
Which we would.
decide in the future at some point in time. But nothing that we have is facial recognition.
If I can, Mayor, members of council, first, I want to acknowledge Captain Teener, who's in the room. I know that he was the technical expert that actually went through and did a lot of the research, and I have full confidence in anything that he does, quite frankly. And secondly, Chief, what does success look like at the end of 60 days, or what would cause you to be concerned to say we don't need to do this contract?
So we tested another system out, the similar things, and we just put a trailer out on the highway. And I can let Captain Teener's here to answer any of the nerdy questions that are way above my head that are technical in nature. But we were seeing like 10, 15 stolen cars going down Highway 51 weekly. So what we anticipate is we're actually going to see our crime rate rise because we're going to see stolen cars that are in our city that are being stolen from our city that we weren't seeing before. So success for us is going to be seeing things that we can't see now. These particular cameras are going to be mobile cameras. We can move them. We're going to be looking for hotspot areas where we're having crimes. These first few cameras we're going to be setting up in some of our shopping corridors, some of our retail, local merchants are having some theft problems. So we can assist in reducing the crime with that. I anticipate we're probably going to net a lot of stolen vehicles, which are on the rise in Broken Arrow, vehicles that are wanted for some reason for a criminal investigation. A lot of times we have a report of a vehicle, so car burglaries are on the rise in Broken Arrow. Sometimes we get a tag. If we have a tag but we don't have a suspect, we can say, oh, that vehicle's coming in town every Thursday. If it comes back in town on a Thursday, it says, hey, this car that's tied to these 15 burglaries, it's back in town. So we can start looking for that car.
So I have a few questions, and I do want to say, I mean, Chief, and any of our police officers know, I back the blue 1000%. And my concern is, and I'll tell you a little bit, and this is why the concerns came up because it's a totally different type of camera, but I've sold technology, and I know that when you have hardware, you can improve your hardware just by updating
Mhm.
and upgrading software. Because I mean, that's like the big expenses with the hardware, and then you just do software updates and software upgrades. So sometimes you pay for an upgrade, and that comes like your yearly subscription upgrades or whatever, and you pay for your cameras to do more. Or sometimes Microsoft or your software company just does an update where you open up your software and it says you have an update. So you click OK, and it does things. I mean, it like makes you have more capabilities than you did the night before. And typically they aren't huge things, but and just knowing, and I will say the camera I sold was $150,000 camera. So this was not a cheap, this was a very substantial capital equipment purchase. So, and these updates were included with that camera. I mean, just because it made it function better. And usually it happened when Microsoft did upgrade or updates, you have to do software updates to keep everything working correctly, because Microsoft is always doing their own updates. So I've had some citizens reach out, and I do want to let them speak, and because I want to make sure that we're fully transparent about all this, is where our software is transferring the data, and that in that database what is actually, because anytime you send something out to the cloud or whatever the database is, who has access to that data? Because even though we're using it for this, and I trust that that's what we are using it for, could other agencies, could Homeland Security or the FBI or other agencies be using the data? Because, I mean, something happens in the Patriot Act, and somebody thinks there's an insurrection, so they want to go in and look at data. I want to make sure that nobody else but us has access to that data, and I don't even know how to prove that, because if we are not maintaining our own data, that worries me. And then, yes, I know what we are using this for, but it worries me in the future what other councils could be using it for, or decide, you know what?
Or when you're no longer here.
Right. And we've started down this path of feeling like our privacy, all of us understand that when we walk out into public domain, our privacy, we have less privacy. People, when you're carrying this around, my daughter's 23 and I can still track her because, she has the same phone plan I do. And we can track people. We know how to do that. And so we have this weird thing that used to be strange to us, that privacy almost doesn't matter as much anymore because we're on social media. We're telling people we're going to Oklahoma City. We're telling people we're on vacation. But I want to go back to the 14th Amendment and what that means, and that I want to make sure that we're respecting, because we can be taking a picture. I mean, you can take a picture of my tag, but I didn't do anything wrong. But what if I'm somewhere and somebody else thinks I did something wrong, and it gets run, or somebody borrows my car and does something wrong in my car, and then I get my car back and I'm getting pulled over for something somebody else did. And I mean, so there's things like that just kind of popped into my head, that I just think it's a very slippery slope of violating our privacy. And I think we do need more legislation about privacy. I mean, the Patriot Act threw it out there, and we haven't been to reel it back in after 9/11. So so those are my concerns. It has nothing to do with me thinking our police department has anything like nefarious. And I understand, yeah, we want to get all the bad guys, but is it actually making us more safe? Because it's not really keeping crimes from happening. It's aiding us in catching bad guys, but I don't know that it's keeping crimes from actually happening in our city. So that was a lot.
Okay, so let me go through those one by one.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, so currently, if you report your car stolen, so your car's gone,
Mhm.
we come out and take a report. We enter your tag and your car information to the National Crime Information Center. That's a database we don't control, and that's been that way for 50 years. And so that database is accessible by any law enforcement agency, Homeland Security, anybody in the country, and it's always been like that. So it's crime-based, okay? If someone wants to report your, for some reason, your tag for you went to Oklahoma City, there are certain rules on how it can be entered in the system. Same thing with this. It has to be crime-related. We can't enter your tag in just because someone wants to follow you. You have to be involved or reported as a suspect in a crime. So there are several databases that we access that we don't own. Our computer-aided dispatch system is a database that's based in the cloud. When I say CJIS compliance, it means it is cordoned off. There's not outside internet access. Nobody can access it but us. And it has to go through several different proving processes to explicitly be CJIS compliant. So that's a normal thing for a database that we access and contribute to. It's not something that we own. Okay, so it's law enforcement specific. The information is only available to law enforcement agencies. It's not sold to anybody. It's not open to the public. And it's part of a criminal investigation, so the public cannot access that. So that answers your question about where those databases are held and how they're stored and how that works. So that's something that we already have in place, and that's a normal thing. The second thing is the contract for this and the previous system actually is a license plate reader. So the contract is providing a service for amount of money, license plate readers. If there was another service that was going to alter that, that would have to come before this council or future councils. If you're talking about facial recognition, is there facial recognition software out there? Yes. Are there vendors that sell that? Yes. That's not what we went to bid for. That's not what we're looking for. And that's not what came before council. That answers the questions about AI and facial recognition. The human aspect of verifying why we're pulling over a car and going through dispatch, that is if someone were to mistakenly identify you as a suspect in a crime, that happens now. So if someone thinks that you robbed a bank, okay, they enter your tag and your tag pops up in the NCIC system without a license plate reader. An officer just happens to see your tag, run it, and it pops up. We're going to pull you over and we're going to go through a verification process to make sure you're who you say you are. The only thing this does, instead of an officer doing it, the camera does it. So that ability to do that, the legal right to do that already exists. It's just we're having a camera do it instead of an officer doing it. Let's see. So I think that answers the 4 questions that you had.
When you said that I can't remember the exact words, but it goes into, it's like only used by law enforcement.
Law enforcement only.
So, but what law enforcement?
Any law enforcement. The NCIC computer is completely across the country. Any agency that is certified to access the NCIC system can access the NCIC database. And it's not only cars, it's if your bike was stolen, if your piano was stolen, anything with a serial number has rules and regulations on what can be uploaded and what can be entered and stolen. So if you have a piece of jewelry that has no serial number on it, sometimes you can enter that in, sometimes you can't if you put some type of number on the back. So that system that already exists is very similar to this. Only law enforcement agencies can access that system.
So now what about whenever the camera reads the tag wrong? And because there's been stories that in different cities that it reads it as an L instead of a J or whatever.
Right.
And then you go after that car because it's.
We don't just go after a car because it pops up to the system. That's one of the reasons it takes a picture of the vehicle and the tag, because if it's wrong and it says it's Ford Escape and it's a Jeep.
Happened in other cities.
Yeah.
That's why people are asking.
Yeah, that's the human element. Before you take any law enforcement action, regardless if you run the tag by radio, if you run the tag by data computer, or a license plater runs a tag, you still have to go through the verification process. It happens.
So that was an officer error, I would
It
say.
could be an officer error. It could be a dispatch error. It could be a data entry error on the front end also.
Okay.
It's happened before where a vehicle's internet is stolen and the victim gets the car back somehow and they don't notify law enforcement. I got my car back.
Oh, yeah.
And they're driving down the road and someone pulls them over and it comes up as stolen. Well, normally someone driving a stolen car is going to act suspicious. They're not going to be like, hey, what's going on? And so you have to use the human element to verify your eyes, your senses, and what you see on the computer screen. So again, the process of verifying the need to pull over that car or what it's wanted for still has to take place. So there's several different steps that does not change. We can do the same thing today with eyes, a pen, a pencil, and a camera, a snapshot camera, as we can do with this. It's the same process, and the verification process does not change.
And if you think about it, there's no expectation of privacy when you're driving your car down the road, for one. And for two, and I've shared some of these concerns and talked to people about these concerns as well. But you go to Walmart, you go to Reese's, you go to the dog park, there's a camera there, and your car is getting taken a picture of by a camera. And I don't know where Walmart stores their stuff, but I still go to Walmart.
Well, in Walmart and Reese's and our dog park is also getting your face too. They're not just getting the,
So,
license
yeah, they're
plate.
getting more than what
getting-
this is
They're
getting.
getting way more than this. And I
But
mean,
they're not the police. They're not law enforcement.
well,
Right, but but what he's saying, this is stored somewhere secure. That, who knows who's accessing that?
I don't know. That's what my question is. I don't know that. I mean, people can hack into anything. I mean, so I don't know that I believe that. So, because I think anybody can hack into anything. I mean, not anybody, but people that they're out there to do bad things, that is what they do. They go in and they hack into computer systems. And I don't know that I like the fact that Homeland Security and the FBI and everybody can get into our stuff. And
They already can.
It's already that way.
It's already that way.
If I stop you for driving down the road for
we
speeding.
don't have flock cameras now.
No, even
don't have this
regardless
database.
of flock, but if I stop you for speeding and I run your tag, it's entered into that national database. That's how I,
Yeah, you run a
Right.
tag, they already have access to that. So
Right, but
regardless of
it's
this,
not
they already have
Picture
access.
of your car and possibly we don't have the software for facial recognition, but maybe they do, that they can make it work differently.
And again, that's why I brought the picture. There's no picture of your face on these. This is geared towards and angled towards and set up to take a picture of the license tag only. And what goes off and what is searched is it takes the picture of the tag, but actually translates that, because you can't run a tag like that. You have to recognize. It's like scanning a document and it does optical character recognition. It transfers over, it makes it plain in plain text. That's what's sent off to the database. It doesn't run the person because it's not set up that way. And both contracts that we have specifically state license plate readers.
But what if their software is more advanced than our software? Like, so yeah, the picture only, like our software, we can only see this, but their software is more advanced and they can see more, the same exact picture, but they can zoom in more and they can see more because their software is more advanced.
So when something is CJIS compliant, you're agreeing to access a database and they're agreeing what can be searched from that database. So within the contract, it's very specific about what can be accessed. If they were to change the agreement of what they have in their database, there would be violation of the CJIS requirements and they would not be able to market themselves to law enforcement.
and also when you and the mayor went through our Citizens Police Academy, we ran you through our national database to make sure you weren't wanted somewhere else. So I think that information's out there a lot more than you would think that it is. The way I look at this is they're going after the bad guys. They're not just going after someone that's going to Reese's for their daily grocery list. There has to be a reason
So
for that to
I'll
be.
give you an example. Let's say you've got a car in Tulsa that was involved in 3 shootings. They don't know who's driving the car, but they got a tag number. We have an agreement with Tulsa and they can give us a hot list. They can say, this tag is associated with these 5 shootings, okay? If we have a license plate reader in Broken Arrow, regardless of what vendor it is, and that hot list, who's generated by a law enforcement agency, is sent to us, our tag readers will tell us, that car just drove across Garnett, is now driving around in Broken Arrow. Has it committed a crime? No. Do we want to talk to that person because maybe they're wanted for 5 shootings? Yes, that will make the city safer. There is no wall between us and Tulsa. And it's no secret that some of the crime that we're experiencing is spillover from Tulsa. If we're the only one in the metro area that doesn't have this, that's a capability that we're not going to have.
So why are we going with the flock camera versus the other cameras we've had in the past?
So the big difference between the two is the LSAG or the Leonardo package cameras are much more expensive. Okay, you buy those outright, and they last 5, 6, 7 years. Those are high-speed cameras that can relicense tags up to 100, 120 miles an hour, even in the dark. Okay, these are good cameras, but they're not built like that. These are a different model. These are a leasing agreement to where it's $3,000 per camera. These, in my mind, since they're self-contained, they can be moved from area to area more easily. They're not hardwired in. They're not that expensive. The model we want is a hybrid, because if I were to buy 75 cameras and lease them at $3,000 a piece, that's a whole lot of money down the road, as opposed to mixing and matching some of our intersections with higher speed cameras that are more expensive that don't have to be moved around. They're permanent. So the difference is just a hybrid. There's probably 10, 15 different license plate readers vendors out there. And through the research we've done, and Captain Teener, is we have picked these two as our hybrids.
If you drive outside of Broken Arrow, you've probably been picked up by a flock camera.
Yeah, I know. I don't like it in other cities either.
I just wish it would pick up
So-
paper tags, honestly. I mean,
Well,
would
that brings up another question. What about tribal tags? Because we know that, I mean, I have a tribal tag, and we know that, I mean, I'm not going to say it out loud. I mean, I know that they don't pick up.
I have a tribal tag too. My tribal tag is registered with the state.
Yes, so
Her
some
tribe is not.
Yeah.
some
We're not
some
gonna say
tribes
what
are,
tribe is.
Yeah.
some tribes are not. Okay, but what will happen is it doesn't really. So tribal tag doesn't matter if that tag. Again, remember it's letters and numbers. It doesn't matter if it's tribal or not. If your tribal tag, again, you committed a crime in Sapulpa, and they got your tag and they entered the system and it pops up, it's going to tell us this tag. It's not going to tell us it's tribal tag.
Mhm.
Even if it can't reach the NCIC system, it's still going to say your tag was involved in a crime. We're going to pull you over. At that point in time, we'll call the tribe and run your tag and verify who you say you are, if you're a suspect, if you're not a suspect. So it doesn't matter if your tag is registered. If it's registered in the system, then we will investigate that particular tag. Now, again, if you're not involved in a crime and your car has not been reported as such, your tag is never going to pop up. It's never going to alert. It doesn't just say, and you got to remember, thousands and thousands of cars go through the intersection every day. It's going to alert us when there's a want on a particular tag itself. Paper tags are another matter. That's where officers have to use that human element and look at a tag. If it's 30 days out of date, they're going to pull it over. But that's not something, because those paper tags are generated by the dealer, they're not generated by the state.
But taking a picture though, why can't it take a picture of its paper tag?
You can take a picture of a paper tag depending on how it's there and how it's written, but there's, depending on how it's mounted. I mean, it's got
Well,
to
plus
get
they're-
a.
yeah, they're so
People
faded.
alter them
and then
all the time.
That's why a lot of the tags across the nation have changed, so license plate readers can read them.
Those letters actually stand up off the plate too, and that
Some
probably has
of the
something to do with it.
previous ones they could not read, and that's why across the nation, all the states have moved towards tags that are available to be read like this.
So you feel like it'd be good for our police department? I know you want to look at this, but the concept would be good, maybe helping catch more criminals. And by the time you catch them, they're not going to be stealing another vehicle or robbing another whatever, at least if they're in prison doing that.
So before my generation in law enforcement, there was a call box, and you had to call in every once in a while to see if there was a crime committed because you had no radio, and then you would go to that call. Okay, the radio system that we have in modern day policing was transformative. This right here is transformative, and we have so many more cars on the road today. We have so many more concerns to address today. We have so many more things that officers need to address on daily calls for service. This is the next transformative movement in policing.
Well, and the point I was going to make also is that we know the sheriff's department utilizes that. And I believe the Tulsa Police Department utilizes that.
Mhm.
And the criminal's going to know if Broken Arrow is not going to use that. You know what I mean? And so I think it would be advantageous if our police department feels like it's for the safety of the city, for us to keep at that level, being one of the safer cities. Technology-wise, we're going to have to stay with that now. Does it need to be monitored? Possibly so. But the concept of it, I feel like that we really need to have some type of system so that, we've done that way with police cars, with the AR-15s, you know
Mhm.
what I mean? Make sure our police department can compete with other police departments, and especially the criminal. So I see that we need to move on this and do this.
Our Master's Citizens Police Academy night is going to go tour David L. Moss, the county jail. And the driver of the program asked me what we were talking about. And I told him, and he says, I'm so glad so-and-so agency had it because his dad, who has Alzheimer's, went missing. And they were able to track him down before he hit somebody or hurt himself because his car was showing up in these different towns. So it's not just about criminals, it's about keeping people safe.
And it is preventative.
Yes,
And
it's
it does help
preventative.
prevent crime.
And I stated this before, the 10 years that I spent teaching in prison, inmates in Oklahoma didn't want to move to Broken Arrow. And I asked them why. It says, you've got such a good police department. Said we haven't run any high risk of getting caught. And I said, that's what we intend. That's what we wanted.
We
And
like
so
that.
we need to stay up on, need to stay with that to do that.
And like I said, I trust our police department. I am very concerned about the data, where the data is stored and how it can be potentially utilized.
Have we had any breaches that you know of?
No.
As
Yeah,
any
and
other cities?
They're not going to tell us the
No.
people that did it.
Well,
Aren't going to
it's a
say
reasonable
they had
question.
it.
So the difference
Yeah.
between law enforcement databases and other databases is there's no bill paying aspect. It's not tied to another system that's tied to another system. A lot of times what happens in a data breach at a hospital, you've got a bill paying process. And the bill paying process is tied to the patient chart. And the patient chart is tied to the medical history, and it's all tied together. Law enforcement databases are CJIS compliant by the nature of the way they're made, is they are siloed and they're not tied to other things. You can only access them one way, and that's between law enforcement and that database. It's not open to the outside world.
I have a healthy distrust for anything that can potentially go against the 14th Amendment or anything of any part of our Constitution. And coincidentally, it is Constitution Week. So I've been asking questions about this since the very beginning. I never realized we were getting flock cameras. I thought they were the traditional cameras that we had been getting. And just
we
the
talked about that with
database.
Tina.
Yeah, the Leonardo cameras that we have that
Yeah,
already
I didn't
installed are the
realize they
same
were
kind of
flock.
cameras.
We talked about the cameras, but I just, and maybe I wasn't, yeah.
The Flock is a brand name. So the previous
Right.
cameras that were already authorized and already installed, they do the same function. It's just they're different vendors. They go about the business differently, but Flock is a vendor. LSAG and Leonardo is another vendor. They do the exact same function. It's like a Chevy and a Ford. They accomplish the same mission.
And they store their data the same way.
Their data is stored on a database. I can let Captain Teener explain that part of it. But again, it's law enforcement only. It's not open to vendors. It's not open to private citizens. It's not open to companies. It's not like when you go on a website to buy something at Amazon, you accept all the cookies, they share their data out. That's not what this is. This is specific law enforcement only. Happy to answer any more questions.
I think you've answered the questions that I submitted, that people had reached out to me and asked specifically, and I know you all. And then we actually got an email today too, on a lot of posts that's been coming up on social media as well. But I think we probably have speakers, I would imagine.
Yeah.
I didn't know if Captain Teener, do you want to?
Anything very technical, I think Captain
Yeah.
Teener can answer this question.
Okay, yep, we do have some speakers. So we will start with Miss Sarah Denai.
Good evening. I would like to request up to 2 additional minutes, if that's possible.
Okay.
Great. Thank you, Mayor Wimpy and Broken Arrow City Council. I would like to request, I am here to, as you may have guessed, to oppose the approval of the purchase of flock safety cameras. Let me first begin by saying that I fully support the effort of our police in catching any criminals and, of course, in finding missing individuals. I'm not here to oppose any legitimate enforcement of law. My concern with flock safety is the blatant invasion of privacy of personal information and the mass surveillance of citizens. All cities that purchase a flock safety camera are providing information to a centralized government surveillance network. Surprisingly, I found a lot of my information from the ACLU, who I generally do not agree with. I think they were pulled into the research because of ideals that I won't be mentioning tonight. However, the other things that they found are of note. And they have, in fact, been warning many cities against the adoption of flock safety cameras. They write, Unlike a targeted ALPR or automatic license plate reader camera system, Flock is building a giant camera network that records people's comings and goings across the nation and then makes that data available for search by any of its law enforcement customers. Every new customer extends the network, end quote. If you've heard the argument that Flock isn't a general tracking system, I would like to draw your attention to 2 quotes from their operating system webpage. Quote number 1, if you know the specific license plate in question, use Flock OS to get a detailed report of the suspect vehicle's history over a given time frame, end quote. The second quote, use Flock OS's local and national search network to find the suspect vehicle across state lines, including up to 1 billion monthly plate reads. All this is included for free for any Flock Safety customer. It's been mentioned, but I'm going to point it out again, that there's no warrant necessary for this information to be obtained. If we're being told that this type of surveillance is an inherent risk of using a public roadway, I would assert that the use of AI in mass surveillance of citizens is fundamentally different from that of human observation. Under no circumstances should our government be tracking our movements. In a free country, such tracking should only lawfully occur on an individualized basis and when there is just cause. If BA, however, is insistent on using our own money to surveil us, the 3 main items from the Flock agreement that need to be reconsidered are how long the data is stored, who the data is shared with, and how the data is used by law enforcement, many of which these concerns have been brought up tonight. I can comment further on those items if the need arises. However, I would urge all of you to not extend the Flock network to include Broken Arrow citizens. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Sarah.
Sarah, what was the third? How long
Who's
data
it
is
shared?
stored?
Is it shared?
Okay, I had that. Who data is shared with? What's the other one?
How long it's stored, who the data is shared with, and how the data is used by law enforcement.
How it's used.
Which, and Chief answered all of those, or did you have any additional questions for those 3?
No.
So does that help you, though, that
What did
he
he
addressed
say?
those 3 concerns that you wanted to be
30 days.
addressed in there?
Not really.
But you asked if we would address those 3 things.
No, I'm
so
saying
you would-
from the Flock agreement,
Right.
like in the details of it, their general, if they're using their general agreement and you will vote whatever, if the yes vote wins, then I would hope that those 3 items from their general, what they're just going to hand the city,
Sure.
don't sign that, make the necessary adjustments in those 3 categories to truly protect citizens'
Right.
privacy.
But I thought the chief made it clear that we're just reading license plates.
He did.
So is there?
Yeah.
Okay.
That isn't what the
Okay.
questions were, though.
Right.
Didn't have any. That wasn't about license
Is-
plates.
Right.
Is it just Flock that's the issue? Because we already have plate readers in the city, or is it plate readers in general?
We can't do anything about, I mean, you guys aren't voting on anything that's already in
I just
place.
didn't know if it was an issue specific to Flock that we're.
Like just that vendor.
Specific to Flock and its competitors. Right.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Chief, how long have we had license plate readers in our city?
We have an intersection with 8 LPRs that is not actually online yet. It will go up in the next 14 days. It'll go online. So everything is physically installed at this point.
We've got a mobile trailer here and there that we use for specific reasons. Flock safety agreement with us is 30 days. That's how long the tags are held. And again, if your tag has not been entered in, it's not going to pop up, and it's 30 days.
How long have we had the software where our officers just sitting at an intersection can pull up a tag that's in front of them?
Since I got hired. Maybe long, well, actually probably.
For no reason at all, they can just pull it
NCIC
up.
database has been around since Norman was a young
That's a long time.
Long time ago. And so that NCIC database has been there forever. It's not just cars, it's people, it's jewelry, it's everything. So that database has been around forever. And again, there's audit trails to see who accesses it, why you enter it in, and it's very specific on how you clear it back out.
Thank you. Shirley Vorak?
Oh, I just
You're opposed. Okay. David Oldham.
Thank you for listening to me for a few minutes. I think you guys who know me know that I don't come here very often. And when I do, I feel it's something very, very important. Christy, I appreciate your mentioning the 14th Amendment. You actually saved me a lot of work. The 14th Amendment says that no state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities, or in other words, the rights of citizens of the United States. It further says that nor shall they make a law which shall deprive a citizen of the right to life, liberty, or property without due process of law. The problem here is actually much, much deeper than just the cameras themselves. I'd like to take us back to the early 2000s and remind us when Michael Hayden, head of the NSA, was telling us that it was only just some telephone numbers that they were collecting. Here it's license plate numbers, letters and digits. But what we found out through Edward Snowden several years later was they were holding on to this information and they were able to figure out exactly what you were doing with your life, and they knew you better than you knew yourself. And the problem here is that this is where we are headed. We see it in China, where they have social credit scores and they are actually keeping people from all sorts of things, public transportation and everything else, through the use of these cameras. It was just pointed out to me that January 6th, defendant, the pillow guy, was arrested because he was just driving up and down the streets lawfully, but because he was on the streets, they got him for the make-believe crime of instigating a riot. So we have a lot of things that are a lot deeper than just the cameras themselves. And the question is, we see that the information is only going to be held from us or given to us for 30 days. But there is a maxim in the data community, and that is once it's online, it never goes away. So the question is, what is the NSA doing with all this information that you are collecting? The other further questions is, who are you interacting with? Quite frankly, this gets, and for what are the cameras and the information, what is the use that this information is being put to? We are replete in this country now, and unfortunately our city enforces illegal laws. It seems like we can't have an illegal law, but we can, because if a law is unconstitutional, it is illegal. If we are caught up in that and these cameras are being used against us, then we have a serious problem. We saw it with COVID. We are seeing it daily with the drug war, and the gun war, and these other illegal, unconstitutional enforcement actions. So the cameras are just a tool to make more tyranny easier. That's my concern, and I hope you will consider it. Thank you.
Okay, so it didn't help any that he said that it's stored for 30 days and then
No.
only law enforcement can it.
No, we were promised that. Michael Hayden, he was director of the NSA, promised that it was not being kept. Edward Snowden, who was merely a contractor, he did not work directly for the government. He was a contractor. He worked for Flock Safety, if you will. He worked for Elgar, or whoever the competitors are. He worked for one of those, and he talked about all the things he could do with all of this information, and that it was stored forever.
So Chief, is this data going to be stored forever?
It's 30 days, and I don't want to debate about the Constitution, but he said, if you will, it's not connected to flock safety. It's 30 days, then it's wiped off. But if you're against the system, you're against the system.
Well, the question is, who else has downloaded it within those 30 days? The NSA can take all your information, download it, they wipe it off of their servers, but the NSA or any of the other subscribers to the system can download it and then keep it. I do it all the time. I have to download certain things because it's going to get wiped off in a certain time. I was on, can't remember the chat program, a girl that I met in Idaho. We were there for a speaking engagement. She had it set so where it would destroy everything in 24 hours. I saved the video that she took of us and saved it off. I still possess that video, even though it is gone from the internet, supposedly. No, I still have it. I can put it out anytime I want. Forever. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Captain Teener, can you speak to his comment on that about who can access and download information from a?
Right, I mean, if it's a law enforcement.
It's not gone in 3 days.
So the gentleman's correct. If it's a law enforcement agency, which the NSA is, they certainly would have access to that. That said, I think the NSA probably has powers far beyond being able to get our license plates.
Like software that would look into, that could use the camera that we have, they could utilize that and make it look differently than what ours could.
I would say no to this particular camera, but our cameras that we have in parks that take video, our surveillance cameras, which are Axis brand, you can use a facial recognition overlay on that. It comes at a fairly high price. I can't speak to whether or not the NSA could hack our local network. I'd say the federal government probably has a lot of capabilities. I would like to think that they're not hacking the city of Broken Arrow's camera network, but you ask a question, I'm going to give you an answer.
But they could. I mean, and that's the whole thing. I mean, I have a citizen in my ward that her husband was in DC on January 6th and he had the FBI show up at his house. He was there for a business trip. And so the thing, and it's like, how the heck, I mean, it's like anything that somebody that's doing something nefarious and it could be our own government working against us. I mean, I know that's crazy to think about, but it could be. And I'm not talking about Broken Arrow government. I'm talking about other things. And why are we so trusting of that? I mean, I just am not trusting of that. And I get it and to say that it's gone in 30 days, I mean, just what they said, I mean, that's like saying if I wipe something off Facebook, it's gone. Just because I delete it, it's gone. It's not gone. It's never gone.
So, let's take cameras out of the question. Okay. Let's just say someone reported your tag involved in a crime and that police department somewhere, wherever, they take an information report and file it on file. That's there forever. So if someone's going to access and say, I would like a copy of any cars that were involved in this area between this time and this time, that's still a record, regardless of a camera. It's the same concept. We're accessing and having an agreement with a qualified CJIS compliant vendor. We're not going down to a normal civilian vendor that says we just want these cameras. And so is there any guarantees? No. But I can tell you the vast majority of people that I've talked to are asking me why we don't have this technology, not why we are going to avoid it. And so the people I've talked to are expecting us to have this because everyone else around us has it.
Okay, that doesn't convince me, but
It's the will of the council. So,
well, I mean, I
Satellite
understand that
space.
when it comes to things like this, that I usually am in the minority, but I do have that healthy distrust, and I am very concerned about the data and where it's being. I mean, if we were keeping it within Broken Arrow, if we were storing it someplace here, that we were like supervising that, I'd be all about it because I trust what we're going to do here and that we can make ordinances but the fact that it's just out there.
yeah. So a cloud-based server, and I don't know if Scott Carr's in the room, is actually more secure than a local, if we were to have it locally, because the finances and the protections in place, the way to cut that off from the internet, except for a specific connection with a law enforcement agency, are much greater than we could do on our own. And that's the purpose of using a vendor like this, is because their ability to keep that data secure is much higher than we could ourselves. our computer dispatch system is not housed locally. That's really not the model anymore, because no one can really keep up with building a computer big enough and big enough and big enough to house all the software programs that cities use at this point.
Well, that's also going to cut off the functionality of the system. So if the car's stolen here and it's driven to Tulsa, well, Tulsa police is not going to see that it's a stolen vehicle because we housed it right here, or vice versa. Someone murdered somebody in Tulsa, now they're in Broken Arrow. Broken Arrow's not going to know they're in Broken Arrow because they kept the information in Tulsa. So that's why it's shared across law enforcement.
To add on to what Councilor Green's stating, NCIC is the national database. It gets all its information for each state database. So the power of law enforcement is based on that sharing. So to have a system like this and refuse to share with our neighbors is going to significantly reduce the capabilities of every agency. It would be like the state of Oklahoma deciding that we were going to do in-state stolen vehicles and Amber Alerts and every other alert, violent felons, sex offenders, but we weren't going to share that with Texas, Missouri, Arkansas, and every state did that. It would be very helpful as long as nobody crossed state lines, but if everybody would cross state lines.
If Boca Raton, Florida called us and said, we need this, just take cameras out of it, I'm going to give them everything they asked for. If I have a missing person here, a girl that hopped in a car with someone, I think she's in Boca Raton, Florida, and I said, I need this stuff, they're going to give me everything they have. That sharing is already there, with or without cameras.
Right.
And that database exists in all these silos, but it's pulled together in a NCIC. So that system already exists.
I'm just, you know what I'm against.
Yes, I do.
I don't know what other language I can say it in, so.
I'm just presenting
I'm done
something I
saying it.
think is the best tool today to fight the crime we have today. And I get questions all
So
the
I don't
time
want to
about why
keep
we
the
don't have
city
it already.
safe because I'm against being,
Well, I'm
because
not
it's
against the
not.
14th Amendment, but
So, but
Until
that's the
this.
thing. It's that slippery slope of
the what
how
if?
much are we willing to give away? How much privacy are we willing to give away? And it's so, I think it's a healthy question to ask that, are we willing to give away that privacy? And I mean, the citizens in general that I've spoken with, yeah, we want to be safe, but at what price? At what, how much privacy do we give away for this much safety?
So what, I'm sorry.
We're not giving away privacy because there's no expectation of privacy when you're driving down the road.
In my car, there is an expectation of privacy inside my vehicle. And I don't trust that this can't be used in some other way with more software.
Can we put an ordinance in place that says it's not allowed to?
So I think we have two
Upgrading.
different, kind of going down two different directions here. Can this image be enhanced? Can the capability of this particular camera be enhanced by software? Possibly. We would never be doing that, obviously, without approval, and that comes at a high price. There is an overlay for video cameras. You have cameras inside this building, outside this building, as with all city buildings. There is a subscription price if you want to use any of your existing video cameras as LPRs. So if any of your cameras out here on the street, we could turn those into LPRs for an annual cost. So the first part of this, I don't see a vendor giving us that or making an automatic update because they're capitalists. So they're not going to do that for free.
And the contract itself is for LPRs. So if there was another contract, there would be something outside the parameters of this contract, it would have to come before this board and you would have to approve it.
Right. The second part of that is the city owns a large camera network, primarily on city buildings and parks. I think I would be a bit more concerned if the network was hacked at what kind of software they could overlay with that to enhance those images or to control pan, tilt, zoom cameras and things like that. This is a very specific device designed to read and archive license plates. And I understand the concern with the archiving of that and the moving of the information. But as far as the turning it into something that uses artificial intelligence other than identifying a car by color or license plate, using it to turn it, I'm confident these are not going to be turned into facial recognition, primarily because where they're located and what they're designed to do. Now, video cameras, again, throughout the city and parks and things like that, Jackson Park, Dog Park, walking trail entrances, that's a little bit different story. Those cameras are designed to take a much broader view. But
We should
again,
probably look at those cameras.
well, at some point, we all understand that hacking is a big deal. And I prefer to be able to track my kids on my phone just like you do, but I have to know if I can see my kids on my phone, maybe somebody else can see my kids on my phone. So am I willing to carry a phone in my pocket knowing that, under certain circumstances, maybe the NSA can see where I'm at?
Mhm.
That's the question we all have to ask ourselves.
But that's a personal choice because this is a private, like I bought this and, whether or not I turn off the location, which I do, that's a private decision. It's not law enforcement. So.
So I guess my direct comparison, just food for thought, and I understand where you stand on this,
Mhm.
is there's video cameras that the city owns all over the place in the city. Again, primarily parks and city buildings. If you go to the PSC, obviously, if you go down to the jail, maintenance, this building is extremely well covered inside and out. Those cameras are there. They're taking pictures of when you get here, what you're driving. If we zoom up on it, maybe your tag after the fact, when you leave, what you did while you were here, if you lean down to tie your shoe. I mean, there's some things that you may not want people seeing, but they're being recorded. And as was brought up earlier, anytime you go to a retailer, you're being recorded. Every time you go through the Turnpike toll gate, your tag's being read. I personally can't attest to what they do with that information. I know they send you a bill or charge your Pike Pass account, but this is kind of an extension of something that we have lived with for years, and maybe we just weren't paying attention to so much. But just about everything you do nowadays is going to be caught on camera somewhere.
So the access point is the same, whether it's by my eyes or by a camera. The question is, what are we doing with that? We can control why we access it and what we're looking at and how we're using that information. We can't control what private vendors do as far as your phone. Your vehicle talks to the internet 1,000 times every minute, reporting data back to the car manufacturer. That's in every modern car. That's a private entity altogether. But this is something that we can do with our own eyes, with our own ears, and with our own capabilities. It's just doing it automatically instead of having an officer sit at every intersection and doing that.
I get it. And the data is just out there. That's the data is what I'm worried about, not our officers. So, and I mean, and when we met months ago, I had a lot of questions, and what it did is it made me start researching this more. And then there were some other things that had happened that made me research it a lot more recently. So my stance has never changed on this. I've educated myself on it more, and the more that I educated myself, the more freaked out I got about it. So, and I don't do illegal things, so I'm not worried about it. But I kind of am, because it's still taking pictures of my license plate, even though I don't, other than speed occasionally, I don't. But
That's now on record.
yeah, I never speed. Yeah, but I actually don't speed very much. But
Is it taking pictures of your license plate? Is
it
it?
is.
It's only
So-
if someone recorded it.
So it takes a
It's
picture of the
always
license
taken it.
plate and it's checking to see if it's been listed as something. But the same thing, the same concerns are raised with body worn cameras. Body worn cameras take video of your voice, your picture, the tags it sees, everything around the environment. And those are held for a certain amount of time, and they're purged unless they're connected with the crime itself. So that capability is already there, and we've had that for several years now.
So y'all are swearing, like with everything in you, that for a fact, as God is my witness, this is all going to be destroyed in 30 days.
We don't control the data when it goes to the server. So I know that's the question you wanted, but the NSA has brought up the federal government is powerful, and they're
I
powerful,
know.
hopefully, to protect us.
Exactly.
So there's no way we could answer that question. We only know what the agreements state and that it's CDIS compliant networks.
That's my whole worry. That's the whole point.
It states that it is, though,
Correct.
and you have to
Yes, just
believe
like,
that they are going to do
same as
this.
the NCIC that we've never had a problem with for over 45 years.
Okay. We've got 2 more speakers,
All right.
so you may have more questions.
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah, stay close.
Josh Stenross.
Hey, my name is Josh Stenross. I'm actually a resident of Broken Arrow on the Wagner County side. And I do want to request an extra 2 minutes if I can. I'm going to go completely off script here. I had some prepared statements that I wanted to make about this, but hearing the discussion tonight, I've changed some of those. I think that we're missing the point. It's about tracking, right? It's about being able to take the data from a law-abiding citizen, put it into a database for 30 days, up to 2 years, according to state law. So I see that the flock system has been limited to 30 days based on their basic agreement, but we don't have that same agreement that I was able to find or derive from the city on an open records request for the other cameras that are installed today. The Leonardos, I guess those is what they're called, but and I guess they operate hand in hand with a program called the HIDTA, the High Intensity Drug Trafficking Area, which is a federal program. So the tracking of the information in that HIDTA program, we couldn't find a limitation. State law says that it has to be purged within 2 years. The only thing that we could find further on that was that that's only if the data is stored within Oklahoma. That data can be stored somewhere else and can be there indefinitely. So if you're taking everybody's information and you're putting it into a database, including the whereabouts, the direction, the time, and you're storing that for up to 2 years, and I'm not talking just the flock, I'm talking in general, and you're storing that data for up to 2 years, you are tracking your citizens. We just heard the captain say that that they have the ability to, that the federal government's powerful. So why are we helping them? You know, and I've heard statements today about, oh, the surrounding area is doing this and we need to be good partners. Was that the case during the COVID masks? No, we didn't. We stood on our own. That was the reason that Broken Arrow thrived. We rejected the ideology that we're going to fall into line with everybody around us. I don't believe that it's any of the government's business to track what we're doing on a day-to-day basis. If they're looking for somebody, police work is police work, and I support our police officers. I do. It may not seem like it lately, but I do. And I think their work is absolutely necessary. I think that it is necessary to a polite society, but I do not believe that housing a database that we do not control, the database is completely out of our control. How can we possibly say that this is safe when we don't control the data? How can we say that data is wiped when we don't control the data? We're giving it to a third party, and that third party, at least one of them, is tied to a federal program under the executive branch of the United States government. It's us spying on our own citizens. It's collecting data and directions. I think that there was one other speaker tonight that addressed it, but social crediting, carbon tax per mile coming down the pipe when everybody in the federal government's screaming for electric cars. So if you have a gas car, you're going to get taxed per mile now, because now they can track you and how many miles you drive. If they do that over 2 years, how many miles and how many directions and how many different cameras are you going to be captured on? So I understand the policing thing. And then I also hear Chief Berryhill say that it's the same thing as sitting there and recording a license plate, but it's not. Because yes, you may be able to, a police officer can sit there and they can record your license plate, they can run your plates. They're not going to run 50,000 cars going through an intersection in a day. They're not going to put that in a database and track that for the next 2 years. The tracking is the problem. It's not the catching the bad guys, because you're not catching the bad guys' information. You're catching everybody's information. It's going into a database. The tracking is the problem. That is the main issue that we have. I can't support it. And I would ask that this council votes this down, or at least votes to table this until we can get more research behind how this works, how the data is going to be used, and what insurances that we have that it won't be misused in the future, because there are so many nefarious things that this could be used for moving forward. So I would urge that the city council reconsider, at least table this until further discussion and research can be done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chief or Captain, do you have anything to add to that?
So specific to the HIDA database that he was referring to, our particular regions out of Houston, that their default is 2 years. We can choose to knock that down to whatever we want. State of Kansas requires 1 year. So that's flexible, but their default is 2 years. It's not longer than that. And again, the only assurances we have to this is that everything is CJIS compliant. That is the standard. And as far as storing information, I had a few traffic run-ins with this department when I was in high school. I could go run the tag of the car I had when I was 16 years old, and I would find it in the Broken Arrow Crimes local database. So if you had contact with the police, it's still in our database. I understand this is different because it's taking photos of cars that are not contacted by the police. So I do get that specific difference, but I think that we've addressed this. I just want to make sure everybody does understand this is incident based. So we are getting a call for service that says, hey, a white F-150 with the last 3 of the tag was 557. Just knocked this lady down and she's in the parking lot unconscious. Okay. We now have a way to hopefully intercept that suspect very quickly with technology like this. Whereas before, especially at peak call time on third shift, 7 or 8 o'clock at night, a lot of traffic, it's unlikely we're going to be fortunate enough to get there to be able to contact that suspect. So it is a powerful law enforcement tool. I don't downplay any of the concerns, and I appreciate the conversation.
So when he mentioned that we're saying that we're going to store it for 30 days, but he's saying that it's being actually stored for 2 years.
So that's
How do
the
we make sure that that is not?
The LSAG cameras, HIDA task force is 2 years. The flock safety is 30 days. So that's the two different.
So the concern was to not have 2 years on all of them.
Correct. Yes, I understand that. So 30 days is the maximum. Flock doesn't have an option beyond that. The HIDA database is a default of 2 years. Yes, we can reduce that. That's simply a matter of sending a specific form to them stating our department does not wish for this to be stored any longer than X. Like I said, the state of Kansas is 1 year.
So we have the same thing for our body worn cameras. We store them for X amount of time because if you store it forever, the data gets so large and so expensive, it becomes,
you can't
have it forever. And so these databases that are specific to law enforcement, they put in a cutoff date because they have to be able to manage what comes in. And so it automatically leaves the system because they don't have the capacity to keep it forever because it is a closed system.
So we shouldn't have an issue with lowering the other cameras storage time, right?
That would be a policy decision. That would be up to this council.
Right. That's going to be something that really probably investigators that are dealing with crimes after they occurred, not in real time, would probably want to weigh in on, and at least make some kind of explanation for how much time they wanted it.
Okay. We have one more speaker.
One
Almost
more
done.
speaker.
Almost here.
Matthew Vermillion.
Just turn loose of it.
Curtis Ketchum. It'll just lean right back.
City Councilors, my name is Matthew Vermillion. I'm a 4th-generation citizen of this great, somewhat conservative city of Broken Arrow. This is my first time addressing the City Council, and it's sad that it has to be on this item of the agenda that I have to do so. I want to first say I'm a very pro-law enforcement person. I have family that worked in law enforcement, and I myself went as far to become an armed security officer at one point in my life. I appreciate their sacrifice and the hard work they do. But when it comes to this technology, I have some major concerns and questions dealing with license plate readers. So I hope and pray after the comments tonight, you will consider tabling this agenda at least, or maybe voting it totally down. Recently, there have been statements made that this will never be used for bad intent within our city, and I would agree that we have good leadership. But unfortunately, nothing lasts forever. We've seen that in recent years just in the leadership of this country. Here are a few questions that I have. How does this reduce crime in our city when there are studies out there that say it may or may not solve crime faster, but that it doesn't prevent or deter crime, as have been stated before by certain people tonight? If the federal government has been hacked and data stolen, and even with some of the most renowned technology companies in the world getting hacked, do you believe there is any potential for it happening to this data on the HITA program or even on the Amazon Web Services that the flock cameras are actually uploaded to? And we know most likely the feds have a tie-in on the back door of the Amazon Web Services. What do either of these programs do more efficiently than crowdsourcing? Some police departments utilize crowdsourcing and catch criminals or suspects very quickly. This way, it is always the citizen's choice to participate, and they are not forced to give up their privacy. There have been statements made by city councilors that there were 6 arrests with the use of Tulsa cameras with NBA, only one with a charge that was defined. What are the other 5? This information has been requested, but not answered. What are the recurring costs per year for the HITA program tied to the 9 LSAG Street Sentry cameras that were approved back on December 2022, and the other 10 cameras back on August 15, 2023? And unfortunately, I wish I'd noticed it back then. We would have been here talking about them. Can citizens Broken Arrow do an FOI request on any city vehicle, like the police chief's license plate logs or in his patrol car, or the fire chief's license plate logs on his fire department car, or any other city vehicle logs in their travel? Because you're getting data on GPS as this tags it. It has that and then where you're at next. So we know exactly where you're going inside the city. Can we FOI our own logs of our own personal vehicle? If we are paying a stipend for the mileage that city councilors use for their vehicles, can we FOI all their log in this system? To what end does this go? Does this technology violate the 4th Amendment? We talked about the 14th Amendment, but the 4th Amendment is another concern. And let me end with these 3 things. China surveils their citizens. At least they're honest to why they do it for control. Proverbs 29:2 says, when the righteous are in authority, the people rejoice. But when a wicked man rules, the people groan. And Benjamin Franklin said it best, folks. Those who would give up essential liberty to purchase a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you guys have any answers to his questions? It was, how does it reduce crime?
And how does it prevent
So the specific questions. Can it reduce crime? We've already talked about the fact that if there's a crime that's about to be committed because something just happened on the other side of Garnett, we could prevent it from happening over there. So that answers that one question. What were the other specific questions?
Weigh in on that same question. Does it allow us to solve crimes more effectively and quicker? Yes, it does. Does having a track record for solving crimes quickly and effectively lower your crime rate? Yes, it does. So that's the 2-part answer to that question. Just like Councilor Parks stated, when he was working in the prisons, those folks didn't want to come to Broken Arrow because we were more proactive in our policing. So this is an extension of our heritage.
And what was it? The other specific question?
Was that the cost of the
The ongoing cost.
I think the Leonardo part.
Right. There is not an ongoing cost for the Leonardo LSAGs, with the exception if they are standalone, therefore they don't have a landline internet connection. We pay $35 a month for our FirstNet wireless card.
The main difference between the two is the Flock Safety is a lease program. You don't own the camera. They replace it every so often. The LSAG cameras, you buy them and you replace them every 5 or 6 years. In the long run, the LSAG program is actually cheaper because you don't have the ongoing cost.
But they're not mobile. You can't.
They're a little harder to move.
Right.
So like, for instance, if there's a neighborhood that seems to be getting hit for stolen cars, and you see a lot of that report, you could move one of, like, whichever camera to that neighborhood to maybe, to be preventative, to try to,
Yeah, so and Flock Safety is not the only brand out there.
Right.
The advantage for those being the ones that we would move to a hotspot would be the fact that it's got a power source, it's got a cellular connection, it's all self-contained. So when you move it, there's no infrastructure. You just have to have something to attach it to. The LSAG cameras are a little bit more hardwired, kind of like the ones on the Turnpike, and they have to have a power source. They have to have internet connection. So those they don't lend themselves really to that. They do make something, but the Flock Safety is a little bit easier to move around.
Some neighborhoods have purchased their own video surveillance, and I don't know what process they go through. It's not just gated communities. And I'm sure if there was a crime committed in those neighborhoods, then I don't think
some
someone
have
monitors
Flock,
it all
right?
the time, but they
Right.
may.
Some of the neighborhoods have actually purchased flock safety cameras. The way that data sharing works, because I'm sure that's a point of concern, is it's a one-way street. We would never share our data with them because they're not law enforcement, although they are Flock customers, but they may choose to share that with us, just like they would share their video footage with us if there was a crime that occurred in their area.
Just like the Ring doorbell cameras, sometimes we'll have something that occurs in the area and we'll put something out and a message will go out that if you have video surveillance of your street between this time and this time, if you'll share it with us, we could use it for investigative purposes.
Got it.
They can choose to give it to us. They can choose not to give it to us.
in the neighborhoods that have it, like you said, it's like one way. It's not shooting out into the main street where it's capturing people leaving the neighborhood.
Well, I was speaking to the data transfer and the sharing.
Oh,
It's
sorry.
one way in that they can share that with us, and they likely would. That's the point of them
Okay.
getting those.
I thought you meant
We would never share
capturing.
all of our network's reads with them because they are not a law enforcement agency. And as far as the placement of them, they're trying to read tags either coming into or going out of their neighborhood. So
And I don't
that-
think they have to file for anything to get permission from us to do it. They can just put them up in their neighborhood.
That would be an HOA decision. The HOA is its own little organized body. They have covenants if they have, and they choose to, as an HOA, put that up at their entrance and exit, they can. And if they choose to share it with us, they can. They don't have to.
An example of that would be if a neighborhood had, say, 2 entry and exit points, they put up 2 flock cameras, share that with us. We come in 10 minutes ago, okay, go back 15 minutes, what vehicles have left? Well, it's 3 o'clock in the morning, 1 vehicle left, everybody else is asleep.
It's my understanding in the HOAs that their members in the neighborhood can actually opt out of having their license plate, whereas it goes in and out for traffic purposes. So.
I can't speak to a private entity that's doing anything with their residents. That would have to be a matter to ask an HOA.
My Ring camera gets the street in front of my house. So if you drive down the street in front of my house.
You
I
have
got a
the-
picture of your car.
Yeah.
So the plain view doctrine means you can have the ability to see whatever you can see, take a picture of whatever you have the legal right to see with your own eyes. License plate readers are the same thing. If you can stand there, you can take a picture. If you can stand there, you can write it down or you can take a picture of it. Same rule applies.
That just made me think of something, him saying that, like how there will be something out there that bad guys figure out of how to, like how I could look and physically see your license plate, but a camera won't be able to take a picture of it. Well, I mean, because just like whenever, there's things right now you can use on your phone that you can't see.
So
You
state
can't
law
see the
requires
screen.
that your license tag has to be visibly readable from, I believe, 50 feet. It has to be illuminated by a white light. So if you're driving around, you have something that's opaque over the license plate, we can pull you over just for that.
Right. No, I'm thinking higher tech than that. Like never mind. I'm just thinking there's going to be something that happens that bad guys use where a police officer could actually see the license plate, but it won't be able to be photographed. Or they just cover up their license plate when they do bad
Or
stuff.
take it off,
So-
which is
Yeah.
why there's an importance of us having a picture of the entire vehicle.
Right.
So, there's a
With the
counter
people
for everything.
inside.
It's combat. There's a counter for everything in combat. There's a counter for everything in technology.
Right.
And we have to stay ahead of the curve.
All right. Any other questions or discussion?
I guess my only question is, and I had someone reach out to me too about having this item possibly tabled. What would be the benefit of tabling it? I mean, it seems like we've got the information. I don't think I'm asking, will a table change an opinion? Or what's the benefit of tabling this? I know that was brought up as well. Does anybody?
Well, it would be to get more information, but I don't know what more information could be.
Okay.
If we approve this, it's a 60-day pilot period.
The 60 days is free. And what we would do is there'd be a cost to install those. And then the contract picks up after 60 days. If we choose to keep those 5 cameras, then that money to lease those per camera would begin. And then we would start paying for that as a lease program.
So is this approved, that money, tonight?
Money's already in the budget.
How many cameras does it take on one intersection?
So we have 8 cameras on a major intersection. It takes 8 cameras to read all lanes, all directions.
So 5 cameras won't even take it.
These are not being deployed on intersections. These are being used for a different use. So retail districts where we're having high theft, we would be putting those at the egress points and taking photos of those tags on their way out of the retail district.
So like a major retailer who's having thousands and thousands of dollars coming in and taking out. If we have a suspect information from our city or another city, it would tell us, hey, this car that's been involved with all these larceny thefts in all these cities has just pulled into this parking lot where the Lowe's is. That helps us identify a potential suspect and maybe prevent a crime. Or get a suspect that's leaving. They said, we left in a white car, he went that direction. As he left, then we get a tag number. Then we have a starting point. The most frustrating thing is to take a report from somebody and look at them and say, I'm sorry, we can't do anything for you because we have no way of following up.
And hopefully the preventative piece will be, hey guys, Broken Arrow has these cameras and they're using them at retail spaces, so don't go there, steal the stuff.
So if you notice, there was a big crackdown on catalytic converters recently, and they arrested people in multi-state jurisdictions. And our catalytic converter thefts have gone way, way down. So normally on our large retail thefts, when you're talking like cordless drills, 20, 30 cordless drills, it's a group of people doing that. If we can get one, they have a tendency to help us find the others. So your speeding is not my concern.
I don't speed.
Well,
Everyone's not in Broken Arrow. I don't. Actually, I don't.
Okay.
Well,
So do you feel like your question got answered?
I'll make a motion to approve 231170 and authorize to execute the professional service agreement with Flock Safety.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call.
I'm voting no.
And for the record, I vote yes. Doesn't mean you're against the 14th Amendment or the 4th Amendment or any amendment in the Constitution. So, but you can be for more safety.
And voting no doesn't mean you don't back the blue. I still have my back the blue in
On her Jeep that she doesn't speed in.
in my Jeep, on my Jeep and in my flower bed.
Okay, so now we are going back to item 7. 7B, approval of and authorization to execute a proclamation declaring the week of September 17th, 2023 as Constitution Week. We support.
Do you have
I do.
Okay. Some of my fellow Daughters of the American Revolution chapter has left because I told them we were going to be at the beginning. They know they're going to be here till 8 o'clock. But for those of you that are still left in the audience, do you want to come on down and just stand down here while I read this, and then we'll get a picture? Whereas the Constitution Week celebration was started by the Daughters of the American Revolution in 1955, Daughters of the American Revolution petitioned Congress to set aside September 17th through 23rd annually to be dedicated for the observance of Constitution Week. The resolution was later adopted by the U.S. Congress and signed into to public law on August the 2nd, 1956 by President Dwight D. Eisenhower. The Constitution of the United States of America, the guardian of our liberties, embodies the principles of limited government and a republic dedicated to rule by law. And September 17th, 2023 marks the 236th anniversary of the framing of the Constitution of the United States of America by the Constitutional Convention. And it is fitting and proper to accord official recognition to this magnificent document and its memorable anniversary and to the patriotic celebrations which will commemorate it. Public Law 915 guarantees the issuing of proclamation each year by the President of the United States of America designating September 17th through 23rd as Constitution Week. Now, therefore, I, Deborah Wimpy, by virtue of the authority vested in me as the mayor of the city of Broken Arrow, Oklahoma, do hereby proclaim that the week of September 17th through 23rd as Constitution Week, and ask our citizens to reaffirm the idea of framers of the Constitution had in 1787 by vigilantly protecting the freedoms guaranteed to us through this guardian of our liberties. In witness hereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of the city to be affixed the 19th day of September of the year of our Lord, 2023. Deborah Wimpy. Okay. So, do you all want to come get your picture taken?
Yeah.
Sure.
We're gonna go right there and right there.
We had a meeting today, our regular Daughters of the American Revolution. I'll give this to you, Madam President. And I was in charge of the program today, which was Constitution Week. Sunday, actually, Vice Mayor Gillespie had a little kind of impromptu bell ringing. So all across the nation at 4 o'clock on Sunday, the Daughters of American Revolutions were ringing the bell. Do you want to say anything about that, Christine? No, I think you can take care of it. Okay. Thank you. Thanks for staying so late.
Yeah.
I said, Mayor, maybe I should ask you to touch on it. Johnny's gonna see her in our chapter.
I don't have my phone for signature today. I actually bought this shirt at the National Archives in DC.
I didn't know what else.
Okay. Yeah, I think you may be a speaker. Thank you.
I did tell him I would be there.
Okay, yes, I'll get the details for you for sure, Johnny. I know we also had the same type of thing a couple of weeks ago, but next year we're going to be on the same page and do
That's
it,
right.
do it at the same time.
That's right.
I'd already told my chapter we were doing it tonight, so it was too late to change it 2 weeks ago. So, thank you,
All
Mayor.
right. Item 8 is citizens' opportunity to address the council on general topics related to city business or services. No action may be taken on matters under this item. We have one citizen signed up to speak, Keith Hayes. Probably thought this was going to come up a little sooner, huh?
Yeah, right. That was a long evening, wasn't it? Forgive me while I put on my cheaters here. Age is getting to me. If you will, I'm gonna have to ask for just maybe a little bit more time. One, I may have to take a break because of disabilities. I'm a 100% disabled veteran.
Thank you for your
And I'm gonna cut things down short because I had this long. So excuse me if I try to offend anybody. I'm not trying to. This is political. It's not personal. Socialism, a political and economic theory of social organization which supports the means of production, distribution, and exchange should be owned or regulated by the community as a whole. That is the definition of socialism. Communist ideology. Communist ideology supports the widespread of universal social welfare. Tyranny, cruel and oppressive government or rule. These words can also be replaced by bullying, harshness, strictness, injustice, and unjustness. Unjustness, is that right? So I'm here to talk about Life Ride, and I know you guys voted on this again, and you're going to have to hold on to the end because this is the part that I'm going to drop the mic at the end. Life Ride, according to your words, is a service charge, is a fee. It's not a tax, by your words. So by your own actions, this is a forced service or fee. Going back to socialism, communist ideology. Life Ride, by your own actions, service related questions and don't have to answer these. I'll answer them for you. Is an ambulance service considered healthcare? According to EMS.gov, the answer is yes. Is Broken Arrow Ambulance Service part of the city's fire department or water department? At this point, we don't know what it is because of your actions. I can go through this according to the city website and responsibilities of the fire department. I really don't need to go into that. We're going to skip through because it's been a long night. I'm questioning, what is the authority does the council have to move the control of the fire department to the water department? Because essentially that's what you've done with the EMS service. You put the control in the water department. And if that's the case, why don't we just go ahead and put it all underneath the water department? Let's put the fire department. Let's put city mayor. Let's just put it all underneath the water department. That way we can avoid taxes at all costs. We don't have to go to the people and ask them, hey, we need this service. Let's vote on it. Let's put a tax across for it and let's go for it because this is what we need. But instead, you forced it down our throats. Again, socialism and can be ideology of communism. Quickly, Medicare, Medicaid. What is the other one? Obamacare, AC something, whatever. Obamacare, all that stuff covers this. You're covered by it. Myself, I take the protection and I buy the insurance to cover my family. That is my responsibility as a person, as a parent, as whatever you want to get. That's my responsibility. Therefore, I don't need this service. Now you're forcing it down my throat that if I want to have water, I've got to pay for your service. That is not right. It's just wrong. You guys have the power to revoke this. I took a small survey on Facebook, and out of 80 people, 80% of the voters said no. 13% disagreed that it was illegal, which basically agreed that you guys can do this, but I'm afraid I don't think you can. With that in mind, your next coming elections, and I know it's not for another 2 years, it's political suicide. I have been quiet. I have always been quiet. I am a servant of this community in many ways, but I'm silent. You guys activated me. And as a military man, I will fight for what I believe America stands for. So we have defined that you guys, I'm going to shorten it real quick. I'm going to leave you with this. The Constitution of Oklahoma, Section 237, Part B. Can you pull it up? Okay, real quick. If not, I can read it for you. A law or rule shall not compel, the word compel, force or oblige someone to do something. Section 237, Part B, healthcare system. A law or rule shall not compel directly or indirectly any person, employee, or healthcare provider to participate in any healthcare system. Is that not the violation of the Constitution of Oklahoma? I think it is. So I think I can prove all this stuff. I will take it as far as I need to. I don't want to. I hope you guys in good conscience and because you are representing the people to realize with that small little survey that I did, people don't want this. Let's find a different way. There are different ways. Put it to a vote of the people. And if you win that way, I can't say a word. Put it to a vote by the people. That's what your jobs are for. And I hope you do the right thing so I don't have to take this any further. You've activated me now. So anything I do from this point on is nothing personal, but it is a political battle. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you for your service.
Can we, city manager, can we check into what that section that he indicated? Like, not right now, but
Oh,
it
you'll have to get it off the,
was like section, healthcare, section
Section
2.37B.
Is that correct? We're asking,
It was,
what was that Oklahoma
Section
state law?
237, Part B.
Yeah, Section 237, B-1.
B-1.
It is under
Under healthcare?
healthcare, yes.
Okay.
just I give Trevor a look at it, Vice Mayor.
Thank you.
We're looking at it.
Thank you.
All right. Item 9, general council business. 9A, consideration, discussion, and possible appointment of 2 council members to the 2026 General Obligation Bond Citizens Survey Committee. Mr. Spurgeon.
Thank you, members of the council. Tonight, I'm asking you to take some action. More specifically, as the mayor said, it is actually time to start the planning process for our next community's general obligation bond initiative. The next vote still has to be decided on council when it'll happen in 2026. And that's something I'll be discussing with you either later this year or early next year. The reason we're actually moving much sooner than we anticipated is because our assessed values has increased in such that we're going to be able to sell all of our 2018 bond package 2 years early. And so we need to move in 2026. The last time we did this, we spent a considerable amount of time getting the public's input on what they felt like were the projects or initiatives they felt like that they would like to see in the bond package. And then we reconciled those priorities with the recommendations from directors on the projects they would like to see for their departments. And that's how we came up with the total package that was presented to the council members in January of 2018. We had about $311 million worth of projects for those that were on the council then, as well as I know that several were following what's going on. I know the vice mayor was on the citizens committee that we formed and was helping. We had $211 million that we could spend. The voters approved in 6 propositions, the $211 million. The best way to gather that information to determine what what the public believes are the priorities for projects and initiatives, I believe, is through a survey. And I think for that to take place, I'd like to have the council members be a part of helping formulate the questions that we can submit the full survey to the council once we have it in draft, get everybody's comments, and then approve it. And then we can send it out for distribution. And we'll let it go for a period of time. We'll decide exactly the format in which the survey will go out. There's multiple ways that we can do this. We'll hire a consultant to help us if necessary. Then we'll tally those results, bring them back to council, discuss them. Now I'll ask you to adopt those, and then we will incorporate those priorities into the priorities from the directors to eventually come up sometime, probably I would say by the end of next year, a total projects and initiative package for us to start discussing, so the council can go through the process of having public meetings to get the point where you actually say this is what the project's total is going to be based on the funds that are going to be available. That all starts with getting input from the community. So I'd like to ask 2 of you to serve. Now the commitment, I would say the 2 that are going to serve on this, it's probably just going to be for the next 3 months in terms of coming up with the questions and the formatting. And then I'm going to involve those council members in actually tallying the results, go through everything. And then the presentation by Aaron McCulloch will be given to the council at a certain point early next year to go over the results. And then we would go forward as council sees fit. So I'd be glad to answer any questions. And I ask for 2 of you to agree to serve.
I would be interested in serving.
I would be, if anybody, you know what I mean. I'd like to be on that also.
Yep, I'm good with that.
I would make a comment in volunteering, and I know it's a kind of a difficult position, but I've been in a lot of bond issues here. Our city manager, when he came to town, I kind of wondered what he was doing in 2018, because he did such an excellent job of making sure all the citizens were involved with that bond issue. I still say that that's one of the reasons that it passed by the amount that it did. The citizens decided on what they wanted, and the city manager made sure the staff and everybody was at all these town meetings that we're talking about. So the citizens felt like they took ownership of it when it come time for the bond issue. But I have to compliment the city manager, because I've been through a lot of city managers here, and that was the first time that really happened. And it sold very well, but he did a great job. But
I didn't know any different because it was my first bond. I was like, this is going pretty smooth.
It's a lot different. It's a lot different.
We've had some that didn't go as smooth for sure.
Yeah.
And this is probably going to be extremely exciting yet challenging, because we're going to have to move in 2026. Really, the election is going to be in less than 3 years. And the process last time, from the time I gave the package to the council in January and we voted, it was 8 months. And to me, that was too much, probably too much, too short, because there's just a lot when you get the public involved. And we need to have at least 3 public meetings, maybe 4, and that we're sure everybody can give their input and then tally all that information. But I can tell you, the staffs and the public's projects reconciled. This will include I'll create an advisory committee of some citizens and business leaders, the chamber, the school district, to help, because obviously all those entities need to be involved. I spoke to Russell Peterson today, and he and I are going to have lunch next week, because obviously they'll be able to help. They're helping with the school district's vote in November, and so we want to get the Build a Better Broken Arrow involved. He's excited about this. He's been following everything that we've been doing, so this will be one of the most exciting things we do, because you could be looking at a package, quite frankly, between $300 and $350 million that actually would be considered a no tax rate increase. We keep the tax rate the same. So this is just continues the growth and the prosperity, and ensuring that the infrastructure, the buildings, the roads, the stormwater got the highest proposition last time, around 74%. So we know how important that is. Public safety. I can tell you there's so many recreation projects. I don't know how we're going to come up with a list. When you think about Aspen Landing, when you think about Elam Park, when you think about a potential partnership for an aquatic center, then the general maintenance we need for this is going to be exciting, very, very exciting. And it all starts with getting the public's input.
I'll make a motion for Mayor Deborah Wimpy and Councilor Johnny Parks to serve on the 2026 Go Bond Election Citizen Survey Committee.
I'll second that motion.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call. All right. Item B, consideration, discussion, and possible approval of resolution number 1546, a resolution fixing the amount of general obligation bond series 2023 to mature each year. Cindy Arnold.
Good evening. As city manager said, in 2019, they approved a 210 million plus bond package. This will be the 8th series that we've sold. And it will include 26 million, a little over 26 million for streets, 4.7 million for public safety, 3.1 million for quality of life, and 400 for public buildings, and 650,000 for stormwater. The bonds will have a term of 20 years. Resolution 1546 allows us to move forward for the sale. Friday evening, I sent out the preliminary official statement. That gets circulated to anybody who's interested in the bonds. If you have any questions on that, you can reach out. Nate Ellis is here, and Chris Wolf is here if there's any questions.
Any questions?
You might have said it, and I didn't see it here, but how much if we sell this, how much is left of that bond issue approximately?
I looked at it just not too long ago.
90 million, yeah.
How much?
90.
About 90 million.
About 90 million?
That's why the next bond sale's got to move up.
Yeah.
Because I think we're slotted for about 24 million this time, and it went up to 35 because of the NAV.
All right. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 1546.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Roll call. Motion passes. Item 9C, consideration, discussion, and possible approval of resolution number 1514. Resolution declaring the intent to consider approval of a project and creation of a tax increment district under the Local Development Act. Cindy.
Resolution 1548 is just to start the process for a possible TIF number 5, which would be in the southeast portion of the city. This will allow us to form a review committee, and at this point, it's just sales tax only, so it would only be city and outside representatives. The other jurisdictions would not be.
Can we ask a question real quick?
Oh.
Well, and then the resolution, when you click on it, it says resolution 1548. So I just want to make sure which one it is.
So our printed paper says 14.
1514? Is it just the printed paper is wrong?
Is it 1548 or is it 15?
I bet it's 1548 because
Okay.
But I don't know if there's another 15, 14 a few weeks back.
The agenda says
I don't ma- I-
1514.
yeah, we kind of need to know what we're voting on.
Click on resolution to 1548, the next one. It should be 1548. Yeah.
Okay.
So just our
Okay.
paper,
All right.
our
So
paper
it's just-
says 1514.
Okay.
Sorry.
Is that doesn't pose a problem?
No, the resolution.
It does not. We have the correct title simply because the number, it says 1548 versus 1546. The title of what we're doing, which is fixing the amount of the GO bond series 2023,
1514.
is accurate.
Okay.
So if it's just the scrivener's error of the 1548 versus the 1546,
14.
15.
Well, it's
We're on
our-
item
our
C.
paper.
right? I'm looking at the agenda on the paper.
Yeah.
And
We're on
Item
item
C.
C.
It says
okay,
1514.
I'm sorry, 1514 versus 1548.
Okay.
Really
I just
going
need the
down.
same thing. Right.
So
Number in
my
there.
question was, if
Start
it's
over.
posted that way, does that cause a problem if it's not?
But this is
1514?
posted on the website.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I'm just talking about this.
But I don't know.
And when the
where-
motion is made, it needs to say 1548.
Yes.
Right, and the answer is as long as the title of what it's doing is accurate, which it is, and it's just simply a scrivener's error of 1514 versus 1548,
Okay.
it's fine.
Okay.
Okay.
Carry on.
Any discussion?
If I can, Mayor, just one
Yes.
point. I did speak to the superintendent today and let him know that we're actually looking at this as part of the project we're working on, that it was sales tax only.
Okay.
And Mayor, if
That's good
I
to
may,
know.
one point of order, we do require action from the council to designate a person to serve as the chairperson and a representative of the city of Broken Arrow. So that would have to be done as well.
As far as the same motion.
It could be done in the same motion or in a separate motion.
Okay. What does that person have to do before I?
What is
What's our
that
job
commitment?
duties?
What's the commitment?
The,
They lead you all the way. It's anything that's
Yeah.
going to take a lot of time.
I did the last one.
Okay.
And besides that, it's a sales tax only, so it doesn't include, you know what I mean?
Okay.
The schools or anything.
In
Okay.
schools or anything.
Well, I mean, I'd be willing to serve.
And we need two.
We need two or one?
one, and then you meet with the planning commission, and then you appoint board members from
Yeah,
there.
you help get
How
the-
many
mean-
times do you meet?
Like
We only
once.
said once.
Oh, okay.
Maybe
I
twice.
just don't want to over.
If it's complicated, I think.
Okay.
Mayor, if I may, we'll have Mr. Ellis address that issue.
We'll stop discussing it and you can give us the actual facts.
Clarify a couple of things.
Forget the rumors.
So the TIF does potentially contemplate ad valorem tax being a component in that. So the review committee does establish
What it
a
will
committee
be.
membership that includes the taxing entities.
Okay.
The appointment, you can just, as far as what it takes to be the chairperson will actually provide a list of names of at-large or potential at-large representatives. The balance of the committee will select those, and then they'll just serve as the chair of the committee. I mean, there's not much more.
Okay.
I would anticipate 2 to 4 meetings that, could last an hour and a half, 2 hours each potentially, just as we kind of go through and review the project plan that's ultimately put together and look at the numbers and financial impacts to everything. So, and then ultimately recommendation comes back before you as the council.
Does that change your thought? No.
Yeah.
It's 2 to 4. 1 to
And
2
and 1.5
hours.
hours to 2 hours.
No, as long as they can work around the crazy schedule. So, yeah, I'm good with it.
You're the
Unless- do you
chair.
wanna-
You're the chair. You get to make the schedule.
So, oh, oh,
right.
I like that.
Yeah.
And they'll tell you what to say.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I'm good with that. Someone else make the motion. I'm not nominating myself.
I'll make the motion well, it says consideration. So are we considering? We're considering, I want to, for 23-1200 and for Vice Mayor Gillespie to be the chair.
Are you finished with your presentation?
I'm sorry.
Were you finished with your presentation?
Yes.
Okay.
Staff is recommending approve resolution 1548 and the chair.
I'll second that motion. Just wanted to make sure.
A motion and a second. Roll call. Item 9D, consideration, discussion, and possible approval of an authorization to execute an agreement for tax increment finance council services with Public Finance Law Group.
Basically, it's for Nate to help you form tip number 5.
That does make your meetings go a lot better. Makes
It
fair.
does,
We
yes.
got you all along the way.
Yes. Do I have a motion?
I'm trying to see what it says to, I'll make the motion to authorize execution of the agreement for TIF council services.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call. All right, item 9E. I think, Kevin, you were wanting to table this for the next council meeting.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members, Mr. Spurgeon. Item 9E, we're requesting this item be continued for 2 weeks till the next available meeting. We discovered a procedural error that dated back to the time this was before the city council back in 2021, where you instructed staff to re-advertise that item to the local surrounding residents. We made a procedural error that we put this on the agenda without notifying the residents. When that error was discovered, we confirmed with legal counsel and immediately contacted the developer as well as the project applicant, let them know of the error, and we have already sent out the notices to the surrounding neighbors that this meeting will be postponed for 2 weeks and taken up again in at the next city council meeting.
Okay.
So,
Do you have a motion to table?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call. Item F, consideration, discussion, and possible approval of BAZ 945-2023 for rezoning of enclave. Hi.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, City Councilors, and Mr. Spurgeon, once again, what you have before you here tonight is a rezoning for consistency with the comprehensive plan. This is the enclave at Yoli. It's an 18.7 acre site that was currently zoned A1 agricultural. It's being rezoned to RS3 for consistency with the comprehensive plan. That's all we're asking for this evening. The project is moving forward and will be at the Planning Commission with the PUD and the preliminary plat in a couple of weeks at the Planning Commission. But for tonight, all we're asking for is this rezoning.
Any questions?
Amendment, make a motion, we approve the zoning.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call. You have to be faster than that, Justin.
I do pause for a little bit to give you
Just to see. All right. There are no preview ordinances. Item 11A, consideration, discussion, and possible adoption of ordinance number 3807, closing a drainage easement.
Mayor and Vice Mayor, City Councilors, and Mr. Spurgeon, one more time. We previewed this ordinance for you a couple of weeks ago. This is a simple adoption for an easement to close a drainage easement that is existing on a property located 1/4 mile south of Dearborn Street and 1/4 mile east of Aspen Avenue. You have the associated emergency clause as well, which would be the second item to approve under ordinances. At this time, unless there are any questions, we are asking for your approval.
Any questions?
Make a motion, we approve ordinance number 3807.
I'll second that motion.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call. Item B is an emergency clause.
I'll move for the emergency clause
Second?
when it comes up.
All right. Item 12 is remarks and inquiries by governing body members. Well, Scott Fest was this weekend.
Yeah, I spent my 5 or 6 hours at Scott Fest.
Did you
I
go?
enjoyed it. Yeah, I
Yeah.
worked at Civitan.
Did you
so-
wear a kilt?
Oh, no. But I didn't, I better not say this on my, but anyway, I didn't kid anybody because all of them were bigger than me.
Oh, yeah.
That's a lot of me. I really enjoyed it. Yeah, but we worked there with it. And it's really friendly people. They really enjoy being there. They
Yes.
came from a long distance, a lot of them.
Yes.
So
It was
it's a big
the
event.
weather was amazing.
Yeah, it was
I did
nice.
wear the kilt,
I saw
the
that.
tartan.
saw
I
that.
actually purchased one. That's why I asked you if
Did
you're
you?
going to wear
Oh,
yours
we did.
tonight, because then I was going
It
to wear
wouldn't
mine
match the
tonight.
orange.
Yeah,
so.
I know. I have nothing orange. I don't plan
I
on
didn't
getting
buy
anything orange. Just for the record.
No orange for Lisa.
That's why I told Lori I have nothing orange in my
I
closet.
secretly just wanted to have you. It's actually for Hunger Action Month, but I was like, but it wouldn't it be cool if we saw Lisa in orange?
I will feed the hungry, but not in orange.
It's probably only going to be at the if she loses some kind of bet.
So, but I wore orange today because of Hunger Action Month, and the Food Bank of Tulsa had asked if we would recognize that.
That's
And then today is actually National Registration or Voter Registration Day. So, I'm like,
Ah,
yeah,
should have carried around voter registration.
yes, you should have.
But just to go back to Scott Fest, Johnny, it was great weather for sure. And I talked to many people and none of them were from Broken Arrow. So there were definitely a lot of people from all over. And to watch some of those competitions, oh my
Crazy.
goodness. Yeah.
They're
It-
strong.
Yeah. And I heard that the Civitan's eggs were really yummy.
They, hamburgers didn't fly, that wasn't Scottish.
Yeah.
Scotch
The
eggs.
Scotch eggs, they come up with those, and I mean, they had to come in at 5 a.m. just to make more. And if it hadn't been for that, we wouldn't have made any money.
Deep
But I mean,
fried
everybody wanted
or
the
deep
Scotch.
fried hard boiled egg.
It's a hard-boiled
Yeah,
egg,
it's
and they put sausage around it, kind of like you would a crispy, frying biscuit, and fried it,
Yeah.
deep fried it. And I mean, people just loved it. A lot of people come back for 2 or 3 of them.
$7 a piece. You
I
must
know,
have really
we were
loved them.
So,
All right.
Deep fry anything.
Anyone
Yeah.
else?
I have something. So it's Constitution Week, everyone. I'm wearing my Constitution shirt that I bought at the National
cool.
Archives in
That's cool.
DC a couple years ago. But I'll read the 14th Amendment. All persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. No state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor deny any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. The 14th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, ratified in 1868, granted citizenship to all persons born or naturalized in the United States, including former enslaved people, and guaranteed all citizens equal protection of the laws. One of 3 amendments passed during Reconstruction era to abolish slavery and establish civil and legal rights for Black Americans. It would become the basis for many landmark Supreme Court decisions over the years.
The end. Anyone else? City manager?
Yes, Mayor, members of council, just 2 items. First, I want to let you know, within the next 2 weeks, we're going to be opening bids for upgrading the pedestrian crossing for the Senior Citizen Center and the Senior Citizen Annex. It's exciting. However, I'm going to temper everyone's expectations because the lead time needed for the signals and all the related equipment is lengthy.
Yes.
And so we'll keep Kim informed, and I've got 2 board members here, but we are going to be opening that and then presenting it to you for, I believe, on October 3rd for your consideration. And then secondly is that Lori Hill and I are contacting all the representatives from the user groups, letting them know that we're going to need any of their recommended projects for the facilities that they operate in to us preliminarily. All we need, just so you know, because I know what's going to happen when we start making these calls, you all are going to start getting calls. I just need their ID or their projects, because as I mentioned to you, we're going to be hiring a consultant to help us with we can do roads, we can do stormwater, we can do curbs, sidewalks. When it comes to buildings, when it comes to parks, we're going to need some consulting services. And so really what I need is their ideas visions for our buildings that they're operating in, and then we can work together to come up with those, and then those will be a part of the total package that council is going to have to go through the painstaking process to determine how we get within what dollars are available. But in case anybody hits you up about it, I just want to let you know as we are reaching out. I'm not setting any limitations. I mean, obviously, we know some buildings would like to be extended. There's other projects that folks would like to see. But in case you do hear from them, just encourage them to get everything to me as soon as possible so that we can get the consultants working.
We're on it.
Exciting. Okay.
That's all I have.
Okay. All right, we have no executive session.
Move to adjourn.
Second?
The motion and the second. Roll call. Call the Broken Arrow Municipal Authority meeting to order. Roll call.
Green.
Here.
Ford.
Here.
Parks.
Here.
Gillespie.
Here.
Wimpy.
Here. Are there any items to be removed from the consent agenda?
Make a motion, we approve the consent agenda.
I'll second that motion.
You got to click when you say second.
A motion and a second. Roll
Or
call.
click and then say second. Yeah. She said second right as I was
First.
clicking.
I can't overclick you.
I know.
Consent agenda passes. There are no public hearings, appeals, presentation, recognitions, or awards. No general authority business. I did forget to mention that many of us are driving up to Oklahoma City tonight for the Oklahoma Municipal League Conference. Are you driving up tonight? You're not going. You're driving up tonight. Oh, driving up tonight. Yep. So
Guys, be careful.
prayers for safe travel for us. Let's see. City manager.
No, ma'am. No comments.
We have no executive session.
Make a motion, we adjourn. Second.
You can second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Click it.
Thanks. Let's get moving.
Call the Broken Arrow Economic Development Authority.
Councilor Green.
Yes.
Order.
He doesn't want us to leave.
Roll call.
Hang on 1 second here.
All right.
Green.
Here.
Ford.
Here.
Parks.
Here.
Gillespie.
Here.
Wimpy.
Here. Are there any items to be removed from the consent agenda?
Move to accept the consent.
Second.
The motion and a second. Roll call. Consent passes. Item 5, public hearings, appeals, recognition, presentations. There are none. General authority business. 6A, consideration, discussion, and possible approval of an authorization to execute an agreement for tax increment finance council services with the Public Finance Law Group. Cindy.
This is the same contract that you approved during the city council. It has to be approved both by city council and by Beta.
I'll make a motion that we approve and authorize executive agreement with Tax Increment Financial Counsel Services with Public Finance Law Group.
A second.
I have a motion and a second. Roll call. All right. Any remarks from the governing body members? Thank you, Cindy. City manager?
I do, Madam Chairman and members of the authority. I want to bring this up because I believe it's economic development. I found out about 3 weeks ago that some of our housing developers with new housing additions are running into some issues with the U.S. Post Office with regard to their mailboxes. And traditionally, if you live in a subdivision in a home, you have a mailbox out in front of your house. I'm being told by several developers, not only in Broken Arrow, but around the state, is that the post office, for reasons of operational efficiency, is looking to make it to where a development would have multiple mailboxes like you have if you live in a multifamily type unit or building. And that's a real problem for our developers. And we have our list of concerns that we're going to be and opportunities we're going to be presenting when we do our fly-in that the chamber has organized next week. I spoke to Josh Driscoll, who's in the audience tonight, about helping me because obviously that's his world. And we're going to be putting something together to include that because I am concerned about that. I know the Home Builders Association is concerned about it. Josh said he'd heard a little bit about it. So we're trying to find out who we need to speak to about that because that could be a concern for our home builders and in terms of and the residents collecting mail. So in case you hear about it, it's come to my attention and we're trying to get arms around exactly what is going to be required, when this is going to be required, because it doesn't seem to be
Well, and it's
consistent.
supposedly been in place since like 2017, but they're just now bringing it to light. And then plats are being filed. And these are things that should have been discussed before it even came before and was approved
That's
from
right.
the city. So, and I spoke with Congressman Hearn's office, so he's going to be aware, and Adam's going to be with us
Yes.
in DC. So
So I want to thank Josh for he's helping me in advance to get some things together. And we need to talk to everybody because it can be problematic. And I just, in case anybody hears about it,
Interesting.
we're starting to get our arms around it to see what is going to be required. Especially if these developments have already gotten approval,
sure.
which many of them have. So really this is just an FYI for you.
Okay. We do have an executive session. So I entertain a motion for a brief recess to go into.
So moved.
A motion
Second.
in a second. Roll call.
Green,
Yes.
Ford,
Yes.
Parks,
Yes.
Gillespie,
Yes.
Wimpy.
Yes.
Good job, guys.
Yes.
Yeah, you can keep this and
Hang out.
you can go ahead and go. I mean, I can wrap it up.